Okay, welcome to another maths video which I'm going to start on. This is part 1 on linear equations, and this is what I like to call the bread and butter of mathematics at secondary school. You need to be able to solve a variety of different linear equations, and I'm going to go through step by step working our skills up through part 2, through part 3 and so on, so that at the end we can attempt some IGCSE Cambridge questions together. And what a better way to start than looking at the price of things that you buy, fruit and vegetables. So all I want you to do in my starter, so it should take you no more than 1 minute or 2 minutes, see whichever method you prefer, work out the price of the apple you see in front of you, orange, pear and strawberry. See if you can work out the price. Okay, well hopefully you got the correct answers. So an apple is worth 15 pence or 15 cents. The orange is worth 21 pence. Then we look at the pears underneath and we work that out to be 14 pence. And then finally there is a minus in this question, so do be careful. We get then that each of the strawberries, very cheap strawberries of course, are 7p each. Now there's a variety of different ways you could solve that. You could work backwards through the problem, you could try some different numbers and see which ones work as well. But what I want to teach you in this video is how we set out our working, because when we come to more difficult kind of equations we need a clear, thorough method. So let's move on, and I want to show you something very important. Now these are two of the questions that we just saw in the starter. As you see, the apple is worth 15p and the strawberry is worth 7p. And what we've done in our head without realizing is solved a linear equation. We have here 2 apples. So we write down, instead of 2 apples, we write down 2a. So if we have 2 apples, we write 2a. Now from this step of the equation, I've just copied this part of the equation here and put it over there. To go from this line to this line, what we do is we take away, we minus 5 from both sides. So we see the plus 5 here, and we do the opposite of plus 5, that's minus 5. This has the effect of cancelling the plus 5 and the minus 5, and then we do 35 minus 5 equals 30, and then we're left with 2a. Now remember that 2a means the same as 2 times a. So what's the opposite of multiplying by 2? That will then be divided by 2, making sure we do the same thing to both sides. The divide by 2 cancels with the times by 2 there, leaving us just a, and 30 divided by 2 is 15, and we have our correct answer. And this method works for many different kinds of linear equations. Let's take the second example we saw in the starter on strawberries. Well, we have 2s, 2 strawberries, minus 4 equals 10. Then we do the opposite of what we see. So the opposite of minusing 4 is adding 4 on both sides. Now we do this because the plus 4 cancels with the minus 4, leaving us 2s, and 10 plus 4 is 14. Now we do exactly the same step as we did right here. What's the opposite of multiplying by 2? Well, that's dividing by 2. Making sure, of course, we do the same to both sides. Remember, an equation is like scales. You need to have the balance. So the divide by 2 cancels with the times by 2, leaving us s, and then 14 divided by 2 equals 7. Now usually we don't have pictures of apples and strawberries for our equations. We get this letters and numbers all together and we have to work out what the correct answer is. So let's look at my next two examples on the next slide. So this time, bad luck, we have no actual pictures of fruit in this case, and we just need to find what B equals or what C equals. And we do it in the same way as the previous slide. So we look at our equation, we look at the plus 7. What's the opposite of plus 7? Well, that's minus 7 on both sides. Both sides is very important. The minus 7 cancels with the plus 7. That leaves us just 2b, and that's equal to 25 minus 7, and that's equal to 18. Again, if you need any more practice on addition and subtraction, please see the relevant YouTube video. And then what's the opposite of timesing by 2? Remember, 2b means 2 times b. Well, the opposite is divide by 2. We do the same to both sides, and then this divide by 2 cancels with this 2. We're left with just b on its own, and 18 divided by 2 is equal to 9, and we have our correct answer. B is 9. If you're not sure that's the correct answer, well, let's try and check. B is 9. 9 times 2 is 18. 18 plus 7 is 25. We know we have the correct answer. That is marks in the bag, as I like to call it. Now this question we approach slightly differently. We look at the minus 2 and we look at doing the opposite. Well, that would be plus 2 on both sides. Then this cancels with the minus 2. We're left with 3c, and that's equal to 31 plus 2 is 33. Now, I'll give you 5 seconds. How do we get to our answer C at the bottom? I'll give you 5 seconds. Hopefully you've noticed we have a 3 here, so we do the opposite of timesing by 3, so we divide by 3 on both sides. This cancels with the 3 here, leaving us C, and 33 divided by 3 is equal to 11. And we are done. Again, we can always do that check that's really important. We put C equals 11 back into the initial equation. 11 times 3 is 33. 33 minus 2 is 31. And so we can guarantee we have the correct answer. Okay, now it's your turn. So there are 9 questions down below. See if you can work out the answers for A to I. Okay, so very important, you do the exercises by yourself and then check the answers with me as we go through the video. So A is 4 for this question, and then for this question here, B is equal to 1, This question, C is equal to 3. Here, D is equal to 1. This question, don't let the position of the 3E confuse you here. E is equal to 2. This question here, F is equal to 5. This question, G is equal to 2. H is equal to 1. And for the last question, I will be equal to 4. Now, if you got all those questions correct, fantastic. Move on with me to the next slide. If, however, you're not getting the majority of questions correctly, review my examples from the last 5 minutes and then try the questions again until you're more happy with our basic two-step equations. Okay, so my next two examples highlight a problem sometimes with negatives and can make things slightly confusing depending on where the negative is. Now, with the question you see in front of you, 12 minus a equals 7, we still approach it in the same way, but with a slight trick at the end that's very helpful when we work on algebra. Now, we always look at the number that we have, not the letter. So this is a plus 12 because the minus refers to the a. What's the opposite of plus 12? Well, that's minus 12. So we minus 12 from both sides. This cancels with this. So we're left with minus a equals 7 minus 12. Now, if you've seen my negative number video, you'll know that you use a number line to help you with this. 7 minus 12, well, that will be minus 5. Now, we have this weird situation where we have minuses on both sides. The way we deal with this is as follows. We multiply both sides by minus 1. Now, you're probably thinking to yourself, why are we doing that? That seems kind of random. Well, remember your negative number rules. A minus times a minus is a plus. So in this case, minus 1 times minus a is equal to positive a. Minus 5 times minus 1 is positive 5. Now, the quick way you can remember this is, if I've got minuses on both sides of the equation and everything's a minus, you can simply cancel the minuses and you're left with a equals 5. So that's another way of remembering the same key idea, like so. We will do the second equation in exactly the same way. What's the opposite of plus 15? Well, that is minus 15. So we minus 15 to both sides. This cancels with the 15. We're left with minus 2b. 9 minus 15, be careful, is minus 6. And then we can do our trick with the timesing by minus 1. This has the effect of cancelling the minuses. We're left with 2b is equal to 6. And then finally, what's the opposite of timesing by 2? Well, that's dividing by 2 on both sides of the equation, and therefore b is equal to 3, and we're done. Just like in the last slide, we can always check our answer. So if a is 5, 12 minus 5 is equal to 7. That's perfect. If we look at the other question, well, minus 2 times 3 is minus 6. 15 minus 6 is equal to 9. and we definitely have the correct answer. Okay, now it's your turn again. So, like before, there are 9 questions below. See if you can answer the questions for me and work out what A, B, C, etc. are. Okay, let's go through the answers. So, A is equal to 6, B is equal to 9, C is equal to 6, D, in this case we have to be a little bit careful with our minuses, is equal to 2. In the same way, E will also be equal to 2 as well. And our next one, F is equal to 3, G is equal, there's your equals, is equal to 2, and for our next question, H will be equal to 4. And then my favourite question here, well, imagine the minus 7i just disappeared. Well, 8 is definitely equal to 8, so by conclusion I must be 0, which if you did it in the proper way, minus 7i equals 0, therefore divide both sides by minus 7, I is equal to 0. Now, my final part of the video is when we have a 3-step equation. That is when we have one of these lines that go across. The key thing to remember is this line is just algebra speak for divide. That's all this line means. It just means that you're dividing by 3. Now you'll notice that the questions are very similar. There is one difference. One has a big divide sign and one has a small divide sign. So how does that change our first step when we deal with the equation? Have a think for 10 seconds. Okay, so the key difference is this means the whole expression, the whole thing, is divided by 3, whereas in this case it's just the 2x that is divided by 3. So we approach each question differently. When you have a big divide sign, like this, we always multiply first. When you have a small divide sign, we add subtract first, then we multiply. And that makes a big difference. So here we have divided by 3. Well, what's the opposite of dividing by 3? That's multiplying by 3 on both sides. This has the effect of cancelling the denominator, the bottom of the fraction. So we're left with 2x minus 1 equals 21. And suddenly, out of nowhere, we have a normal equation we've just seen in the last slides. So we approach it in the same way. So what's the opposite of minus 1? Plus 1. That means we get this cancelling with this. We get 2x equals 22. And then, I won't do this step in full, but if you looked at my previous examples, x will equal 11. And we are done. In our second example, we approach it differently because of the small divide sign. So now we look at the minus 1. What's the opposite of minus 1? Well, that is plus 1 on both sides of the equation. That means this cancels with this. We get 2x divided by 3 is equal to 8. 7 plus 1 is 8. Now we do the multiplying. So we're doing the steps in a different order. That's the only major difference. We times by 3 on both sides. This cancels with this. We get then 2x. The numerator only is equal to 8 times 3. That is 24. And again, I won't do that last step. Look at my previous examples to deal with the multiplying by 2. This will give you 12. So just because we had this big divide sign and small divide sign, it makes a huge difference when it comes to actually finding the correct answer. And again, we can substitute to make sure we have the correct answer. So 11 times 2 is 22. 22 minus 1 is 21. 21 divided by 3 is 7. This one here is definitely correct. With this one, well, 2 times 12 is 24. 24 divided by 3 is 8. And 8 minus 1 is 7. We definitely know that's correct. So have a go at the questions underneath. They are more difficult than all the questions so far, and see if you can use the examples I've shown you to work out what the correct answer is. I will tell you for the first one, I'm being nice, that this here, A, is equal to 9. That hopefully will get you started. Okay, so I'll give you the answers here. So this here is B is equal to 2. For this one here, C is equal to 8. Again, you can always check through to make sure you have the right answer. And for our next one, D is equal to 19. Like so. The next one, E is equal to 5. And then last of all, F is equal to 6. I hope you like this video. It really goes through the basics of linear equations and going through those 2-step and 3-step kind of equations. Like I do in my normal videos, in part 2, I will recap at the start these kind of skills, and then we will move on to more difficult kind of equations where we have x's on both sides of the equation. So thank you for watching. Please subscribe, please like if you like these videos, and I will try and do more before we start again back at school. Thank you for listening, and bye bye for now.